I'm ready when you guys are. Yeah, that's my wife. All right, hey guys, welcome. We're back after a 2-week hiatus. Happy Thanksgiving to those of you who enjoyed it. That was nice. Tigers are off to a good start. We're going to review the past 3 games. Big win against Mississippi State, a struggling Mississippi State, probably not going to be that good this year, but a key win against Purdue, a team from the Big Ten is probably going to make some noise come conference time. I fully expect them to be a tournament team, quite frankly, so we're excited about that. Also going to bring up a couple of new things. I'm going to call it T.O.'s Terminal. Why do I call it T.O.'s Terminal? You're either flying or falling, baby. You're either flying, your team's doing well, or you're falling. You're falling off a cliff, or you're heading down to the ground. We've got to talk about that a little bit. I got about 6-8 teams. My man Faxon, get to your seat, man.
I will.
Get to your seat. Show me a little hustle. So flying, cruising, or falling. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And then we're going to do an on-the-line segment. I started this a little bit last year with the podcast, and we're just going to do some gambling picks. The picks are taking a little bit longer to come out as far as spreads are concerned, but there's a couple of games that I'm really intrigued in going into the weekend. So last but not least, we're going to look ahead to Maryland, a game I'm thrilled about going forward. I think it's going to be a heck of a game. And Maryland matches up really well. We're going to discuss that a little bit. But first, Faxon, you got your seat ready? You're ready to go?
I'm ready to go. We are seated and ready to talk some college basketball tonight. It's been a very eventful week and a half start to the season.
It's been a really good one. Starting off with Virginia Tech, who had one heck of a game against Villanova, man. An unbelievable performance. And out of nowhere, Virginia Tech got big. Kive Aluma, what do you have, 23 and 19?
Yeah, I think so. And Virginia Tech, man, they're already projected to be ranked after that win over Villanova, so I'm expecting big things out of them this season. All of a sudden, they just came out and they really set the tone. Yeah,
it should be pretty interesting. I'm excited about this season. I'm going to go over here to the board real quick, and we're going to talk a little bit about Clemson's first couple of games. And there you have it, right there. Week 1 review. We're going to address that a little bit. Mississippi State, look. Mississippi State's not a great team. They're very young. Their best player, DJ Stewart, he was their 6th best player last year, so it's a bit of an adjustment. They lost four of their best players, 2 of which were drafted. So they ran into a buzzsaw, an experienced Clemson team, and the introduction of P.J. Hall, who actually missed last night's game with a concussion, but played really well. 10 points and 7 boards. You got to be happy with the way he played, Faxon.
Yeah, and P.J. Hall, Amir going out with 2 fouls early in the game is obviously, as a Clemson fan perspective, I thought we were in trouble. That was just my instinct because P.J. Hall is a freshman. He's getting thrown into the fire against a team with some size. And, man, he did more than hold his own. He played a fantastic game. I think he ended that game with 10 points and 7 rebounds, was fantastic on defense, did a decent job of staying out of foul trouble as well. Mm-hmm. Just really bright future for P.J. Hall, and showing that he can make this sort of impact this early in his career is very encouraging for Tiger fans and maybe a potential tourney run down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And P.J. is going to be able to do that. Somebody asked me the other day, can P.J. Hall and not Omax, but P.J. Hall and Amir Sims play together? I'm not sure that's the best combination. Why do I think that? Because they do the same things well. Amir's the best when he's operating from the top of the key and he's able to post occasionally with shooters around him. Same goes with P.J. Hall. P.J.'s best guarding 5s. Amir's best guarding 5s. And he matched up really well with Mississippi State, who's going to struggle a little bit. But the introduction to P.J. Hall, you can go ahead and cross that one off the list. Not bad at all. Ben Howland it's going to take time for that team to get going. They're going to get better as the season goes along, but they're not where they want to be right now. This one right here, have no fear, Amir is here. You like that, don't you, Faxon?
I do.
Yeah.
Clever.
7 minutes the first game, Amir exploded against the Purdue Boilermakers.
Yes, and Amir Sims came in. He had 24 points, added 3 rebounds in this Purdue game, and just completely took over the game at one point, it seemed, in the second half. Clemson came out and set the tempo early. Got a pretty decently sized lead over Purdue in the first half, and then they let them sneak back into the game late first half, beginning of the second half. But once they hit their stride in the mid-second half, led by Amir, I think he had 5 or 6 points in a row for the Tigers in that mid-second half. Never looked back. Clemson was the easy winners over Purdue in the end.
One thing that I noticed, obviously this team is playing more up-tempo. It's a lot more fun to watch. I love the way these guards pressure, Nick Honor and Alamir Dawes specifically, who are able to get up and pester the point guard. And not to mention, Tiger fans got a glimpse of Jonathan Baer, who had an outstanding game against Purdue. If you want to talk about the closest comparison that a Clemson fan is going to see to James Mays, a guy I played with, one of the Little John legends, look at John Baer in that full court trap. If he's able to stay healthy all year, he could definitely give the Tigers a big boost this season.
And Jonathan Baer added 11 points in that Purdue game, including 2 3 balls. And I just remember, from a fan's perspective, one of those threes was absolutely crucial. I think Purdue had taken it down to about a 3 or 4 point game, had got some momentum back, swung it over to Bear in the right corner, and knocked down a massive three ball. So if he can provide any sort of production compared to last year, then the Tigers are going to be in great shape in the front court depth-wise, especially like how we were talking about how P.J. Hall played. This is a very deep Tiger team.
Absolutely, and you look at the guard pressure is astounding to me. It's not, Purdue was missing Jaden Ivey, backup freshman point guard who has a lot of skill, but man, Alamir and Nick got up and crawled the point guard, and they had trouble with the ball all night. I think they had 13 or 14 steals, Faxon. Is that correct?
It would be 13 for the Tigers, 4 for Nick Honor. And if we're talking about 4 for Nick Honor, he also added 4 three balls in that game, made all-tournament team. Fantastic performance from him as well.
Yeah, and he started out rough. First game, couldn't really get it going. Finally hit a 3. I think he was 1 for 6 to start the game. Finally hit his 6th one. It seems like as soon as that happened, the light switched on from Nick Honor. Is Nick Honor T-Mac? Is Nick Honor Terrell McIntyre? That's above your time. That's before your time, Faxon. Yeah. T-Mac's one of the all-time greats. Little John Legend. Similar stature, might be a little bit taller than T-Mac, I don't know, but ultra quick, able to get into the paint, and was able to finish around the basket despite only being about 5'9".
And Nick Honor, he had a fantastic game at the rim, even though he did have those 4 threes, specifically just getting out in the break after getting those steals, and Clemson was just giving it to him on the press all night.
It was unbelievable. They just continued to force turnovers, and Purdue's typically not a team to turn it over. One thing, I did a little pre-game scouting report on Purdue. The post players did a fantastic job. Trevion Williams is a very good player. Big Ten all-second teamer, about 12 points and 8 rebounds, and can really pass out of the post. One thing that the Tigers were able to do, because you're outsized, you're going to have to use your quickness. How do you use your quickness? You meet the post players a little bit further out as opposed to waiting on them down low. They were able to do that, and whenever they tried to enter the ball, I think the Tigers ended up with 3 or 4 steals, being able to sneak around the post players. An outstanding performance against a team that, quite frankly, you're a lot smaller than, you're outsized, but your size and your defensive intangibles really got into them.
Yeah, and we were talking about Purdue, how they're usually super disciplined. That can be attributed to Matt Painter, one of the best coaches in America. And usually, like you said, they're really just, they value the ball highly. Their possessions, they always make them count and get a shot off. And it just looked like a completely different Purdue team than we're used to seeing. And I know they lost a lot from last year. Like you said, they were missing some guard depth as well. But it was just an incredible defensive showing. And it was really fun to watch as a Clemson fan.
And look, they were picked 9th in the Big Ten. You can expect Purdue to get better as the season wears on. Brandon Newman from Valparaiso, Indiana is a very good player. He's going to be able to get up in that 12 to 15 points a game for Purdue during Big Ten play. They were picked 9th. I could see them going higher because they have weapons that are able to score, and Stefanovic, who's able to knock it down as well. That's a team who's going to win some games, and I think it's going to be a quality win come tournament time.
Yeah, and I was about to go off on that tangent as well. And this win can be super valuable, especially if Clemson ends up on that fringe area. I think Purdue will be a tournament team personally. Painter gets them there every year, no matter what sort of talent they have, and this is a good team. So if Clemson can get to that tournament day and they have a chance of getting in, a win over Purdue and, you know, the hardware, the Space Coast Challenge is going to look very good for their resume.
Absolutely. And then there were some guys that didn't play as well. Hunter Tyson didn't shoot it great, but he rebounded really well. Somebody came up to me and asked, why does Hunter Tyson play so much? He's the best rebounder on the team. Quite frankly, it's not even close. He is an out-of-area rebounder, and he battles in the post. Tolu Smith from Mississippi State had his way a little bit, but Hunter, I thought, who's gained a lot of weight, it's pretty visible. Defensively, he played great. Rebounding the ball, he played great. Wasn't able to knock down some shots. But moving to this South Carolina State game, I just put this game happen because South Carolina State, I think Ken Palm has them at 356 out of 357 teams. It's not a very good team, but what do you get to do against a team like that? You open up against 2 big Power 5 opponents. You're able to get your guys into some rhythm. I was not surprised at all whenever the first play of the game, John Newman comes in, who didn't play well down in Florida. They call his number twice in a row. Why do you do that? You're trying to gear these guys up for conference play. John Newman, you're going to need him to be good the rest of the season. He's coming back from a knee injury. He's starting to feel better. And what happens last night, he's able to knock down some shots, and you could see his confidence begin to rise. Same with Hunter Tyson. The stats for those guys last night, they shot the ball better, they moved better. Competition wasn't as good, but you get their confidence going, Faxon.
Yeah, I know it was really good to see Newman get back in the swing of things. I think he was coming off of a concussion, which is what was maybe part of the issue, getting him back integrated into the game in Florida. But he looked very good yesterday, specifically shooting the ball, as did Hunter Tyson. So just seems like the team's clicking on all cylinders now moving forward, and got a big matchup against Maryland coming up, Alabama, then we go into conference play. Should be a really really fun season for the
Yeah,
Tigers.
it's a nice schedule, and it's not. They didn't Boston College it to where you're going to play top 5 opponents every night.
Yeah.
They were able to get quality opponents that they knew that they were going to be able to at least compete with, stay close. And quite frankly, I think Brownell knew something we didn't. He knew they were going to win that game because I picked them 7th. But after this weekend, the way they're pressuring the ball and the different style of play and the fact that in 3 games they had 3 different starting lineups, that talks about the depth, one. It also talks about the ability to get up and pressure the ball at an alarmingly high rate. They wanted to talk about, what was it, fun and run and shoot 43s. They were 1 of 13. The defensive presence for the Tigers really good. It went from, what was it, fun and gun to fun and none. They didn't hit a 3 all night. I think they were 1 for 12, shot 7%.
Yeah.
The best defensive percentage of Brownell's career. The guys are locked in. The guys are excited. And to be honest with you, in fact, I'm really bitter that this Tigers team's not going to be able to play in front of a packed Little John.
Yeah, and I feel like the play style specifically is so, it's energetic. You're pressing full court. The team shoots a lot of threes, more than almost anyone in the ACC. And I know that personally I'll be at some games attending at Little John this year, but it really is just a shame with what's going on that we won't be able to pack the house out, especially for some of those crucial home games we'll have down the stretch.
Absolutely. I love the manner in which they competed. There were a couple times where Nick Honor was able to split the defense. He got to a left-handed layup one time in the half court, got in front of his guy and didn't move. There's a grittiness, there's a toughness about especially these smaller guards, and they have a little bit of an edge to them because, quite frankly, if you're a small guard in the ACC, you've been small your whole life. There's been no changes. They know how to get up underneath opposing point guards, and they can really give some people trouble. Great performance all the way around. Purdue obviously is going to be the win that holds some weight. These other two, they're good wins, but that Purdue win was something else because you're able to negate some size, something that Clemson's going to have to battle a little bit come conference time, especially playing the Florida States and the Dukes.
And we do have a question coming up from Twitter from Michael Kennard. It's along the lines of what you saw over this Florida Challenge and South Carolina State, and where do you expect Clemson to finish in conference play now that you've watched them play a few games, get these games under your belt?
Well,
has your prediction of 7th changed, or are you a little more bullish on them?
I'm bullish on that one day off in the ACC tournament. I think 6 is probably a good one. But after watching this weekend, and we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
But after watching this weekend, like those top 4 teams that we talked about, there's holes.
They're looking really funny in the light.
Yeah, there are definite holes. And to be honest with you, the lack of scrimmages and the lack of the ability for different teams to be able to get out and play with each other a little bit more, we're going to address that as well. You can see this has been really hard on one-and-done schools.
Yeah, it has, and especially like when you're watching the Duke game this weekend, we're about to transition into talking about them and some other ACC teams. But when you're watching the Duke game this weekend, it really shows that these kids haven't gotten a lot of time to play together, and that causes more issues than the casual fan might think.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kentucky was a prime example. I know I'm venturing off, but Kentucky played Kansas, and they couldn't throw it in the ocean.
Yeah.
They didn't pass the ball. They had 0 assists in the second half against Kansas. This isn't.
That was an ugly basketball game.
An ugly basketball game. I finally just turned it off about 10 minutes ago. I was like, guys, I can't watch it anymore. And they were close and everything, but it was just miserable to watch. And that's a big, profound impact on this season's slate. Like, there's a lot of one and done. Duke's going to struggle. Duke's going to struggle this season. Kentucky's going to struggle. Some of these other guys that are going one and done are going to struggle. There's one recruiting class in particular that's going to continue to thrive. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I actually also have a question here. How many years do you think Clemson will have Hall and Prosper? That comes from Connor Edwards. I think you're going to have Hall all 4 years unless he has a fantastic junior year. He doesn't really – his game doesn't match what the NBA is drafting right now. He does a lot of things skill-wise to where he's going to be able to play for some money if he's able to stay healthy. I say that for everybody. That's not just him. But he's going to be able to play for some money one day. But his style of play isn't where the NBA is going right now. He's going to have to start shooting the 3-ball a lot more, and he's going to have to stay consistent with that, even with his higher shot attempts. What do you think?
I would agree with that. I don't know if his body type exactly fits in the NBA either, because in the NBA, things are more progressing towards small ball, and PJ's body would probably be thrusted into that 4 role in the NBA, and I don't know if he's fast enough to guard other 4s to constitute keeping him on the floor for offense.
I think I would agree with that.
I think he's a great player, fantastic college player, might go down as one of the best to ever play at Clemson. I mean, obviously top 3 recruit in the history of the university, but I think the overseas game definitely fits his play style more.
I think he could spend some time in the NBA. I really do. I don't know that he's an early entry candidate. He's somebody that's going to stick in. He's kind of an Aaron Baines type.
Yeah.
But he's going to have to put on Aaron Baines' weight. So I think you're going to get him for at least 3 years. If he has a great junior year, you might lose him. As far as Prosper is concerned, that's the kind of guy that you got to worry about a little bit because he fits that athletic 2-3-4 mold, guys who can switch, play defense on multiple positions, and can shoot it a little bit. That's the guy you're going to have to worry about. Hasn't really got off to a great start. Had 11 points last night. I was happy to see that. He's going to be able to. He's going to help Clemson for years to come. But I think that's more the guy you have to worry about.
That's a guy that I'm going to hope ends up staying for the P.J. Hall tenure of 3 to 4 years. I think if Clemson got him back for his junior year, that would be a win in our eyes from a fan perspective of getting him for 3 years would be amazing. I would not be surprised to see him leave after his sophomore campaign, especially next year when we got Sims, Trapp, and a couple other guys going out the door. That's going to create more usage for him, more shot opportunities. And I also think this upcoming freshman class for Clemson, these guys aren't going to be as ready to play as a guy like P.J. Hall or a guy like Omax. They're going to be more of the project type. So
I agree with that.
I think that next year, Omax is going to be a premier player on this team, might be first or second in shots even. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see how he integrates fully into the offense as a starter, presumably, and if he puts up the numbers to where he thinks he can go in the first round of the NBA.
I think it's possible. I think he shoots it well enough, and he's probably more geared to play in the NBA. He's more of a free-flowing guy, Omax is. The class coming in next year, like you said, is a developmental class, quite frankly, with Schifflin and Taylor and Beadle, yeah, excuse me, goodness, and Josh Beadle. I think they're going to take a little bit more time, but they're going to be very good too. It's just not the immediate impact guys that we have this year. And I think one that we're not taking into account with that question, Lynn Kidd could be that vertical spacing 5 in the NBA because
he's got a really good touch. He impressed me in the few minutes he got over the Space Coast Challenge. His touch around the basket seems very good. His touch from the elbow and mid-range seems very good. He seemed comfortable stepping out to the three-point line as well. I think for him, it's just about putting on more muscle and getting that NBA-ready body. But I definitely could see him playing in the NBA as well.
Well, I think he needs to be college-ready before NBA. He's not even there.
Yeah.
How old are you, Faxon? You're 18,
I'm
right?
18 years old.
Lynn Kidd's 17.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, that's going to take time for him. But you want to talk about a frame, somebody inching towards 7 feet, somebody with extreme athleticism around the basket and soft touch. Look for a floor or a vertical spacing 5. What do I mean when I say vertical spacing? Somebody can throw lobs to off rolls. He's somebody that could give some NBA teams some notice. I really like Lynn Kidd. It's just going to take him a little bit longer. Big guys take a little bit longer. P.J. Hall is the exception.
He's got to get on that nutrition plan.
I was just shocked at how well P.J. Hall, in the win against Mississippi State, was able to create his own offense.
Yeah, he got the ball thrown down to him on the elbow multiple times, and he looked completely comfortable just taking the guy one-on-one, getting to his spot, and taking a jumper. And I think he shot 5 of 6 in that game. He was fantastic.
Well, going back to what Michael Kennard said, the question as far as where do I see, after watching Duke, after watching Louisville's better than what people think.
Yeah, they're
Louisville's good.
They're good.
Virginia's going to get back. Virginia Tech's going to be better than what we predicted. Well, we say that. We fell in love with them last year too, but I think they're going to be better because now they have legitimate size. I think your ceiling is still that 4-5 area.
Yeah.
Your floor is right around 9 or 10 because you're deep.
And UNC battled over the weekend as well. They played. They lost at the buzzer to Texas, but Texas is a very good team. They impressed me a lot. UNC came back from a lot on UNLV and Stanford as well. So I think that they're still up in that top 4 range as well. I'm struggling to see the schools out of the top 4 that we listed that Clemson can catch and surpass, just from a talent perspective.
Yeah, I was really disappointed in the way Duke played.
Oh, they looked terrible.
They didn't look very good, and they look a little bit out of sorts. But that's what you get with your scrimmages. Coach K didn't scrimmage anybody. That game was supposed to be played in Kansas City, and they end up bringing Michigan State to Duke and then quite frankly, getting their tails whipped. But
they made that score look a lot closer than the game actually was.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This is an interesting question we got from Mark in Greenville. What school would you like to see Clemson schedule if something comes up? And this is an interesting one for me because you're already loaded in the non-conference. So say you lose Morehead State right before Christmas. I would look somewhere in the SoCon, for example, like a Mercer or a Furman, a school that's going to probably compete to win their league or win their league to boost that
resume,
to boost the resume, just to beat another tournament team. And I think Mercer, after showing up and playing really well against a Georgia Tech team that's not playing really well, quite frankly, that's a team that could go and win the SoCon, and I feel like that could be a good game, a good resume win for the
Mercer
Tigers.
and Furman definitely both have very good teams. I think this is kind of a down year for the SoCon. If you're looking, ETSU lost their coach. UNCG doesn't look as great this year, but I think Mercer and Furman would be two prime candidates as well. Specifically Furman, just because they're in-state. I feel like that matchup makes more sense from the COVID perspective.
Yeah.
So I think we could definitely get a Clemson-Furman matchup.
Yeah, and Mercer's women just played Clemson's women, so it
Yeah,
kind of
they
makes
came
sense
up.
all the way around. This is a new section that we're going to call T.O.'s Terminal. I know that's corny, but everybody calls it Stock Watch, so I don't want to do that. So what are you doing? You're either flying, you're cruising, or you're falling. It's one of the three. And first, we're going to talk about those that are flying. We've already talked about Clemson a little bit, but how about Virginia Tech, Faxon? Go up and they play Villanova at Bubbleville, and Kive Aluma, a stud, 23 points and 8 rebounds, and gives Virginia Tech an inside presence that they didn't have last year. Justin Mutz, transfer from Delaware, was able to play steady minutes as well, and they were doing it without their sharpshooter, Jalen Cone.
And it was just really impressive all around the whole weekend from Virginia Tech. I mean, I really have nothing else to say other than I was just impressed. I was impressed at the way that they were playing team basketball, and people, you know, the presumed best player on their team last year was Landers Nolly, and he transferred out to Memphis. He got a lot of unknowns coming in for them, and you and I were not particularly high on them, as was no one in the ACC preseason predictions. But they came out, they played as a team, they played as a unit, and they deserved to beat Villanova. Don't get it twisted. They outplayed them the whole night, and they were the better team.
Well, a lot of kids now are staying away from a redshirt year. You want to talk about a redshirt year that benefited someone? Aluma's going to be a pro now.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about somebody who went from 7 points and 6 rebounds at Wofford and the SoCon to getting 23 and 8 against Villanova and was it Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who's going to be a first-team All-American. Virginia Tech. Now, I do want to caution everybody real quick.
They did this last year.
They did this last year in Maui when they were playing Michigan State. They showed up, put everybody on notice, and then they lost 8 out of their last 9. So I am a little bit cautious there. We've already talked about Clemson's big wins. I'm impressed just in the manner in which they did it. They played 10 guys, 12 guys in the first 2 games. Should be an interesting team to watch, and it's going to be a lot of energy defensively. I want to talk about the cruising group. Carolina and Louisville. Let's go ahead and address Carolina real quick. Their bigs are still good, but I love their freshman guards, Fax. And Caleb Love, R.J. Davis. R.J. Davis has been solid. His numbers have been good. But in my opinion, the Tar Heels are only going to go as far as Caleb Love takes them.
Yeah, and you got another situation where you're relying on the point guard if you're UNC to kind of instigate the offense, and that's Caleb Love. Watching them over this weekend, they had 2 rather impressive wins coming back in both against Stanford and UNLV. That just showed a lot of grit from me, just watching as a casual fan. I mean, they opened up the game down 14-0 to UNLV. They were down 14-0. They easily could have mailed it in, and they didn't do that. They fought back into the game. Garrison Brooks played a fantastic game. They go and they beat a really good, disciplined Stanford team. They take them down to the wire. They won a close game there, and then they play Texas, who got a big win over Indiana, blew them out of the water. They're probably going to, I'm guessing Texas is going to be a top 10 team in these next rankings, and they lose at the Horn. They played a really good game there, too. I really liked what I saw from UNC over the weekend. Obviously, they beat College of Charleston. I think they're 3-1 now, and I think that they are going to be around that 4-5 range that we had them in the preseason predictions. They could maybe even go higher than that.
Yeah, I think this is a team that if Caleb Love, he can get where he wants to on the floor. We've talked about Day'Ron Sharp, his ability to come off the bench and rebound at a high rate. We've talked about Garrison Brooks, my preseason player of the year. We've talked about Armando Bacot, the guy that has shocked me, who can get to his spots, and he's learning to pick his spots. He's going to figure it out. It's going to take a little bit of time, like we've talked about. No scrimmages in the preseason. Caleb Love is a bad man. He gets to spots. He's strong enough to hold guys off, and he can shoot the ball. That ball comes off his hands really nice. I really like the way that team was playing. Louisville, they are right on track to where they're going. Carlick Jones averaging a little over 17 and a half a game. 7 rebounds at about, they say he's 6 foot. I think that's pretty generous. Carlick Jones, a transfer from Radford, Big South Player of the Year 2 times, I believe, was able to basically do anything you want. Got an underrated win over a very good Western Kentucky team.
Yeah, Western Kentucky, you know, from a national fan perspective, you might not think they're that good, but they got Charles Bassey, one of the best players in the country. Louisville looked extremely impressive in that game. I think they were only favored by 4 points. They ended up getting in the borderline blowout range, and like you were talking about, it's just they never go away. Every year they will bring in someone else, and that'll come in. And this year it seems to be Carlick Jones. He just played fantastic. I think they're up to 4-0. Carlick Jones is averaging around 17 a game. If he can keep that clip up, that 15 to 17 point per game range, like we said he would preseason, then Louisville's going to be a very good team.
Yeah, and David Johnson's playing well too. He's averaging right at 12, 5-5. He's my preseason second team All-ACC guy. But this is a team that's just going to continue to get better. Nickelberry's coming in. Josh Nickelberry, a sophomore from Virginia, he's coming in, giving good minutes. Jalen Withers came in, gave good minutes. They're starting to see more time. And Aiden Igahone, the big man who had to come in because of injuries to two of their starters, Malik Williams and Samuel Williamson, they're still playing well. They're still producing. They are right on track. These teams right here, I almost wanted to put them in the ascending column, but they're exactly where they want to be.
Yeah.
They're able to. Carolina's able to squeak out wins.
They're easy top 6 teams in the conference. You can just see it for the first 3 games of the season that they're going to be an elite team for the whole year.
It takes no time at all. And then you have Louisville right here, who just continues to get wins despite injury, with 2 good ones. They're 4-0.
They're just annoying to play in their conference with.
Yeah.
They're always good. They never go away.
Just tough guys. Seton Hall, Western Kentucky, 2 good wins. We're going to see. Now, I'm going to get a little negative. Faxon, you know I don't get negative often, but I'm going to do that right now. Who are falling? Georgia Tech has been brutal. I am shocked they've been so bad, quite frankly. And what do you want to attribute that to? 1, they're not playing hard, and 2, they look all kinds of out of sorts on the offensive end. Why is that? Because Passener's only been playing like 3 or practicing 3 players at a time. They haven't had a team practice this season.
They can't shoot the ball. They're shooting 26% from 3 as a team, and we're seeing great shooters like Michael DeVoe. He's at 29% from 3 on the year. Jose Alvarado, he's at 27% from 3 on the year. These are guys that shot upwards of 35% from 3 last year that have just fallen off a cliff, and against some non-stellar competition. They're 0-2 with losses to Georgia State and Mercer, if I'm not mistaken.
And that's a tough loss. You lose to Georgia State, who's literally two miles down the road. It's not a good look for Tech, who's supposed to be an ACC power this year. And one thing that a lot of people aren't keeping in mind, James Banks was really good at protecting the rim.
He covered up for so much defensively.
It was unbelievable because he let Alvarado go out there and gamble. He let DeVoe go out there and gamble and be aggressive on the ball. They don't have that this year. They're just not as good this season, and it's been difficult. The rim protection isn't where it needs to be in order for them to be a really good team. Rodney Howard, the transfer from Georgia, is just not the same player. They're trying to force feed him, trying to get him minutes.
I will say,
not the same.
Moses Wright has impressed.
I was going to say, the lone bright spot for Georgia Tech, I think he ended up with 31 and 19 in the first game against Georgia State. And he has gotten better. He's progressed every year. He's currently leading the conference and scoring only 2 games in. But 31 and 19, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, and man, if they
What's
can
his rebounds?
He's currently averaging 26 and 12 a night, which is just ridiculous. I mean, it's 2 game sample size. Obviously, he's shooting great from the field and 3 as well. They just need to get Alvarado and DeVoe shooting the ball better, and if Wright can continue with his offensive production, I think they could still trend upwards and maybe compete for an NCAA tourney spot. But, we watch Selection Sunday every year, and we watch them break down these teams, and their quality wins, and then you got a bad losses section. They've already got 2 sitting in that section.
Yeah,
that's going to be brought up on Selection Sunday. If they're in contention, it's going to be, are we really going to put in a team that lost to Georgia State and Mercer?
Mm-hmm. And they have Kentucky coming up.
Yeah.
Which is going to be a bit of a rough game, but Kentucky's not good either because they're struggling offensively. Everybody right now, because of the lack of playing time and the lack of cohesion together, the fact that Georgia Tech's not practicing together, that is a lot bigger than what I think people realize. You have to get that continuity. You have to play together. Like Jordan Usher's forcing the issue. Mike DeVoe's forcing the issue. Last season, whenever he would penetrate, if he didn't score, he would know where his guys were at. That takes time to develop. You need floor time with each other.
And Michael DeVoe's averaging almost 6 turnovers a night, which is just, I mean, we know he was up there in turnovers last year, but still, for the quality of player, there's no excuse. And you can tell that that's really taken a toll.
Yeah, very out of character. Very out of character. Alvarado hasn't been as good usually, and they're not pressuring the ball like they used to. And I will give a small caveat here. This little zone that they like to run, the extended 2-3 with the bottom wings high, it's very tough to run against mid-majors who can shoot. Both Georgia State and Mercer, quality shooters on both teams. Tough start to the season on a team that I think everybody picked towards the middle of the ACC.
A lot of pundits had him over Clemson.
I'm sorry?
I said a lot of pundits had them over Clemson.
Yeah.
Them and NC State were both over Clemson.
I don't think people knew how good Nick Honor was, me included. But going to this one, Virginia, I kind of knew this was going to take some time, and I'm going to explain why. The defense isn't as good this year because Mamadi Diakite and Braxton Key brought that physical presence on defense. They don't have that this season. However, they were also trying to figure some different things out offensively. Jay Huff, a 7'1" guy, is a good shooter, not necessarily the biggest, most physical presence, but somebody that is skilled out on the perimeter and going to be able to, and he's a good shot blocker defensively, but on the perimeter, he's going to do some different things. He's a pretty good passer. What happens? They play against San Francisco, don't figure it out. I put them at the falling category because I think it's going to be the only time we'll have the opportunity to do that this year because I think they're going to figure it out. Tony Bennett's that good of a coach. But you lose to a team in San Francisco who had lost their previous two, that's not a good look, especially when you have the presumed ACC Player of the Year in Sam Hauser, who's supposed to be bringing a different dynamic to the Virginia offense.
Yeah, and like you said, he's supposed to be bringing that dynamic. Their offense is still as painstakingly boring and slow as ever, just based off of these first couple games. I was not real impressed once you said, like you said, on defense they did not look good against San Francisco. And I mean, San Francisco is a good West Coast Conference mid-major. They're a good team. They beat Nevada last night. Another good win for them, but still a school that the preseason number 4 team in the country should be handling with ease.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it. They did go back and they did play their blocker mover, which is basically, they say blocker mover, it's basically a wheel action. And then they'll run some flare screens and some down screens, but those guards are just rotating and rotating. They went back to that last night and ended up being up against St. Francis with 10 minutes to go, 59-17. So it's just going to take a little time. Yeah. Tony Bennett tried to experiment a little bit with a skilled 5-man in Huff out on the perimeter. Just didn't work. They go back to their bread and butter, what they're good at. Virginia's going to be fine. This is probably the only time that we're going to be able to put them in the fallen section.
I'm expecting them to finish top 10 team in the country.
Yeah, sure. I don't think there's any question. I will say this. I thought Virginia was going to be a national championship contender. I'm not sure that I see one in the ACC after this weekend. Now, I'm jumping to conclusions a little bit.
That might be jumping the gun.
That's jumping the gun a little bit. I think Virginia could compete, but after watching this weekend, there's a lot of Sweet 16 teams. I'm not sure there's a championship team in this group, but we'll get to that. Duke had a really rough go at it. I'm talking Matthew Hurt being the first option and Wendell Moore, who was presumably going to be one of the top players in the ACC this season, really struggled from the field.
Wendell Moore is currently shooting 30% from the field and 12% from three, just for some context. He had brutal. 0 points, was 0 for 9 from the field last game, and 4 turnovers. And this is a guy that is presumably one of the most talented on this Duke team, if not the most talented, aside from Johnson. And I just can't figure out what's wrong. I don't know if it's the system they play.
He looks like a good player.
Yeah.
He looks the part. He dribbles the part. He catches and shoots the part. His shot doesn't look bad. He's just not making any of them. And he gets to the rim with ease. I'm a little bit shocked that he has played so poorly. 0 for 9 and 3 turnovers. That's not a good look, especially when you're playing an older, that's a big part of it, an older Michigan State team that just brought the heat, and there's no Cameron Crazy, so they weren't able to
feed off that energy.
And
I think that's an underrated part of this season for a lot of the ACC schools is, and specifically college athletics, is the no crowd can really take an impact, especially for a school like Duke that, that's a hard place to play is what everyone says it is. And, if you can't get that crowd behind your back, especially Duke went down 10 or 12 points and they just kind of rolled over. They stat padded their way back into it at the end. That was not a 6-point game.
No.
They deserved to lose by 15 plus.
That was a beatdown. And I tweeted this out before the game started. That was a Rocket Watts explosion waiting to happen because you have good guards. They're a little bit out of sorts. And going in, that's your second game of the year. Michigan State's probably not the best when you're, especially a veteran Michigan State. Like their youngest starter, I think, was a sophomore.
Izzo's fantastic. Always. Beginning of the year, these tourneys, Michigan State usually cleans up. And this game was supposed to be in Kansas City, I think you were talking about. This game was supposed to be in Kansas City. Duke gets to bring him home, and they still lose. Not a fantastic look. And let's not ignore that Coppin State played them really tough in the first game of the season, too.
Yeah, they did. And Jalen Johnson had to play phenomenal for them to actually clean the floor with them. So here's another thing, too. Matthew Hurt should not be your first option offensively. He's a third option on a really good team. He's a second option on an okay ACC team.
And he's currently the points per game leader and the shot taker, the main shot taker.
It shouldn't happen. Look, you're trying to post him up against animals. He's trying to put the ball on the floor a little bit too much from the perimeter. He does have that in his game, but I have fallen off the Matthew Hurt train.
he needs to be the guy that kind of takes a step back. Like, I feel like they're trying to play through them like they're the early 2010s Mavericks. This guy's not Dirk Nowitzki. He's not going to go. He can't get you that one-on-one bucket as consistent as you need it, and he's not a good enough playmaker out of the post. Like, this guy, he's averaging a half an assist. He has 1 assist in 2 games, and he's being fed the ball so consistently.
Yeah.
I can't stress how bad that is.
Well, teams are starting to figure it out that he struggles to score if he puts the ball on the floor. And that's what Michigan State did. They're like, as soon as he got the ball in the post, everybody else stuck to their man. They weren't going to let anybody else score because he's going to struggle scoring over defensive bigs, and Michigan State had a lot of that. The ACC has a lot of that. Duke worries me. Jalen Johnson's really good. I actually sang his praises after going 8 for 8 and 19 points and 19 rebounds against Coppin State. He is as good as advertised, but he met some dogs against the Michigan State Spartans.
Yeah, and I actually have a question for you. How do you think Clemson matches up with this Duke team? Just looking first 3 games for both teams, do you think Clemson stands a chance going up to Cameron this year?
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say, but yes, because Amir Sims is better than Matthew Hurt. If they continue to play through Matthew Hurt, there's going to be issues in Cameron. Like he may have a couple of explosive games because he does have some offensive ability to create for himself. But this is not Christian Laettner. This is Matthew Hurt, who struggles defensively and has a hard time putting the ball on the floor. Duke's going to struggle as long as he's on the court. Jalen Johnson needs to be that focal point because, 1, he's athletic enough to get by people, and 2, he's a good enough passer to make everybody else and get them involved. Hurt needs to play off of him, not the other way around. DJ Stewart's a pretty good player, too, freshman guard out of Chicago. He's solid. He's had some big scoring nights. I don't know what he had against Michigan State, but I know against Coppin State he had 23 points, was able to show some things that way. But Duke, I am worried. The makeup of this team, probably not where you want it.
It's a disastrous makeup for the team, and it's really frustrating, like, if you were a Duke fan, because it seems like every year at this point, you've got just an extremely talented roster, but you can never make it work. Ever since 2015, like, how did that team with Zion Williamson not win the title? I would ask myself every day if I were a Duke fan.
Old guards win.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm going to say. Old guards win. There we go. The R.J. Barrett, Zion, they had Tyus Jones, or was it Trey Jones or Tyus?
It was Trey Jones.
Trey Jones, sorry, I get them confused. But Trey Jones, he was very good, but he was still a freshman. Old guards win. You have to be able to get those talented guys involved.
Man, they had Trey, Cam Reddish, R.J. Barrett, and Zion and Javin DeLaurier was their starting 5. There was no experience there. And like you say, freshman guards struggle in the ACC. They were going up against Cassius Winston when they lost that game. They lost to Michigan State in the Elite Eight that year. It was just, you don't have an experienced guard. What can you do?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. All right, for this next section, I'm going to call it On the Line. I have 4 games that I'm going to make a pick. I want Faxon to make a pick. There's a lot going on, but these are probably the best ones that I feel like, 1, you're going to be able to beat the spread, and 2, they're going to be pretty fun to watch. Starting tonight at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, Virginia Tech is going to play VMI, and they're 21.5-point favorites, Faxon.
I think they're going to cover that.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Because VMI won, SoCon, they don't necessarily play a whole lot of defense at VMI. It is that run-and-gun type tempo. Virginia Tech's going to get anything they want, and they now have the size to defend smaller teams with the athleticism boot. I'm going Virginia Tech in that one. I think that one's a no-brainer. This is an interesting one to me, and I think people are going to be a little bit shocked that I'm going to pick them. But Boston College against Florida. Florida's favored by 6.5 currently. That's tonight at 9 o'clock. And Michael White has done an okay job at Florida, but he hasn't been able to get them over the hump. BC's guards can get in the lane. They got wherever they wanted against Villanova, and they've had some big scoring outputs against other teams as well. I like Boston College to cover.
I'm going to be with you on this just because, for some reason, I took time out of my day to watch Florida play Navy the other day for the majority of the game. Or it was Army, actually. And Army gave them a really good fight, and Florida can't cover anyone, man. That defense is just bad. There's no other way to beat around the bush. The defense is bad, and if Army is getting consistent open shots on you, when you just take the pure talent level and coaching level up to a school like BC, and like you said, they've had some high-scoring outputs already, I think that the guards for BC could have a big night tonight.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. When you have Mekhi Ashton-Langford, a transfer from Providence, former top 50 player, Winston Tabbs, who has shown makes his Boston College team a million times better, and then Jay Heath, who's coming back from injury, is finally going to play. I like Boston College's guards. And Florida scares me because, like you said, they don't guard. And if you have guards that can shoot and can penetrate against the Gators, you're going to have a chance. 6.5 is a little strong.
Also feel like Florida plays super reckless on offense and does not value possessions a lot, just based off of what I was watching the other day. Don't seem like a very disciplined team, especially when they get out in transition. They can get really reckless with the ball.
I'm in complete agreement. Michael White likes to push it up the side, but after they get that initial offense, guys just kind of move on the weak side, and there's not really a whole lot of purpose, and guys just kind of fling it around everywhere. I like Boston College's chances tonight, not only to cover the spread. I think they could beat the Gators.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in agreement.
Moving on, UConn versus NC State at noon. We talked about this. DJ Funderburk and Manny Bates are now playing together, and they're playing Thomas Allen and Devin Daniels together running the point. Kevin Keith said he liked this team a lot. It's a team that looks better and better. And Manny Bates is playing 21 minutes a game, and he's got a 25% shot block percentage, meaning when he's in the game and they shoot in or around the rim, Manny Bates is there covering a fifth of the time. He has been phenomenal. So UConn versus NC State. I will say this. UConn's got some guards. I'm going to pick UConn. I think UConn has the guards that are able to do it. I think Hurley's doing a fantastic job up there. Spread's not currently out. The spreads are taking a little bit longer this season.
Yeah.
But I like UConn to beat NC State.
I think UConn will beat NC State as well. And a thing I will be watching tonight is UConn plays USC. And that game, the spread on that game, I know for a fact is a pick 'em. I think that game will really be an indicator of where I will be going with my pick for that game. If I want to say now, I think Boatwright can carry for UConn. Like you said, their guard play is fantastic. And with no Johnson for NC State, losing him last year, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle just the scoring production coming out of the UConn backcourt. But I'll be watching tonight to see what I see out of UConn. Tonight's will be a test game because USC looks really good so far as well. They blew out BYU the other night.
And then we're going to move out. So we're both picking UConn?
I'll pick UConn.
You're going to have to argue with me some now. You can't pick the same thing all the
Yeah.
time. No, I'm just kidding. Kentucky versus Georgia Tech. That's happened Sunday, the battle of the overrateds. This is going to be an interesting one. Passner's just going to have to bite the bullet and practice some. It's gotten to a point now where if he's in kind of a catch-22 because he wants to play the whole season because he has a tournament team, but he hasn't practiced together because he feels like if somebody gets popped for COVID, he's going to have to sit everybody and they're going to have to miss games and not qualify. He's going to have to just start practicing because this team is all out of sorts, and I don't see a way that you fix it unless these guys just play together.
Yeah, and they just look just tragic offensively, and I have a feeling that you might pick Georgia Tech for a potential upset here. I think Kentucky's going to win this game and possibly comfortably. I think this is going to kind of be a breakout game where they find their groove against Georgia Tech, and I just can't pick Georgia Tech to do anything offensively. And Kentucky's defense, their offense was out of whack the other night against that Kansas game. I know you said you watched some of that game. I watched the majority of it. Their defense against Kansas actually looked pretty good. They were forcing a good bit of turnovers, really energetic on the glass. So I think that, especially with no James Banks for Georgia Tech, I think that this is a game Kentucky can dominate inside.
The reason I'm bringing this up, I think Kentucky's going to win. But the reason I'm bringing it, I think the spread's going to be hefty.
You think it's going to be like a heavy spread?
I think it
15?
might be 11 and a half, 12 points. And I feel like because Georgia Tech's guards might be able to keep them close, and they might play hard. Like they just haven't been playing hard, and their defense hasn't been good. James Banks was a lot better than people gave him credit for. I feel like Georgia Tech could cover if the spread is high enough. Spreads aren't come out yet. I'll tweet that later on, but
they could get a cover. I would take anything up to 12 for them to cover. Yeah. You get above that, it gets kind of dicey. You get under that, because I feel like also you got to keep in mind college kids foul so late into games at ridiculous point totals. So that gets really sketchy sometimes as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Clemson moves on. ACC Big Ten Challenge. Maryland is coming to town, the former ACC foe and reigning Big Ten co-champion. Of course, in the Big Ten, they can have like 3 champions. They also split that with Wisconsin and Michigan State. Those guys right over here to my right, they're going to be a pretty good team.
And yes, Maryland has started off this season 3-0. This is not going to be an easy game for any means by the Tigers. And since we're just on the line of what we think the spread will be, we don't know what the spread is. I'm interested to see how Vegas puts these odds because I feel like Clemson was getting a little disrespected in that Space Coast Challenge, and I think that Clemson might be favored in this game because they're playing at home.
I think that's an interesting point, especially playing at home and everything. Look, Mark Turgeon's a heck of a coach. 10th year at Maryland. He's done a nice job. They're 3-0 currently. They're going to play 2 more before the Clemson game. They'll probably be 5-0 because I'm not going to call them cupcakes, but they're not great teams that they're going to be playing. Look, this is a team that Clemson matches up well with But more importantly, they could play some guys at different positions to try to guard Amir Sims. I would be surprised if they didn't use Dante Scott to try to cover and go small, at least for Maryland, go small with Scott at the 5. All 4 of these guys are averaging at least 10 points a game, with Ayala, who's averaging 16.5. So Wiggins at 12.7, Morcell at 12.3, and Scott's had some nice turnouts as well. This is a very well-balanced team. It's a bunch of different guys that can catch and shoot, and pass, catch, and shoot. Skilled guys that play together. And Maryland always has good individuals. Turgeon does a nice job.
And yeah, they're shooting 44% as a team from beyond the arc this season, which is impressive. Even though their first 3 games in the next couple haven't been the highest level of competition. This team's got a lot of shooters. They're going to move the ball around. They got a lot of guys that can get you a bucket in one-on-one. So this is not going to be an easy matchup by any means for the Tigers. Like you said, I will also be watching for who ends up guarding Amir Sims. I think he's going to get 4 or 5 different guys thrown at him, especially if the original matchup struggles early on. I think you're just going to start seeing him guard him by committee. So it'll be interesting to see. And I don't know if Amir will have a great game point-wise in this game, because I feel like Maryland might make it an emphasis to shut him down.
I think that's a good point. What he could have is a good rebound game, and he could have a good assist game.
Yeah.
Mark Turgeon, he's not overly complicated, but the rest of these guys, if you look at their measurables, 6'5", 200, 6'6", 200, 6'5", 200, 6'7", 230. This is a versatile group of players kind of going along. And they can all move, they can all guard, they can all pass, cut, and dribble. It's a skilled team. It's something that Clemson, it's a very ACC team, ironically enough, but they're no longer in the ACC. This is a great team. I hate that they're not in the ACC anymore.
They remind me of Louisville.
A little bit. I think that's a good comparison.
Yeah.
Probably not without the top-end talent. Like, look, they're 24-7. They lost Anthony Cowan, who was their leading scorer, and Jalen Smith, who was a lottery pick. So they did lose quite a bit. They're not quite as good as they were last year. Outside of these 5, they have Jarris Hamilton, a Boston College transfer. This is a talented team. Not as good as last season, but definitely a top 3-4 team in the Big Ten. This is going to be a nice little challenge. And I think it's a good matchup that the ACC and Big Ten came together and agreed upon. This is one of the better matchups that Clemson's gotten in a few years.
And if we're talking, like we were saying earlier in the show, how we think Purdue is going to be a tournament team. This is going to be a tournament team. Clemson, this is a really good win for Clemson to get out of conference. It's a very good look for the program and the school. And if you're sitting on Selection Sunday and you're pointing to a team like Georgia Tech, who already has these losses, or a team like Clemson, who has won over Purdue, Mississippi State, and now maybe could get another win over a tournament team, this would be a really nice win to have for the future. This
is probably the biggest resume-boosting win. I think Alabama's going to be okay. I don't think they're world beaters in the SEC.
They've looked super undisciplined. I don't know if you've watched. This is the same Alabama team that we've watched in the last 3 years. They play like chickens with their head cut off. They will score 80 points on you, and they'll give up 85, and they have no regard for ball safety at all.
Yeah.
Just based off of what I've seen against games against Providence. I think they played in that round robin of sorts over the weekend. But, yeah, that game is going to be in the 80s for the Clemson-Alabama.
Yeah, I like the way it's played. I'd be shocked if Clemson didn't slow it down. If Clemson plays that game underneath 75, I think Clemson wins against Alabama.
Yeah.
But they're not going to be a top-flight team in the SEC.
No.
This is going to be a top-flight team in the Big Ten, and this is going to be a major resume booster. I'm going to be on the call for that one.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to be calling that one on the radio as well as the Alabama game, so I'm actually getting some work facts, and so that's good news. And I do have a little bit of a scouting report. Look, anytime you play Maryland, this is all you got to do. Let me pull it up for you real quick. I'm just going to give you a little scouting report if I can find it here. Towards the end of the game, we used to run this play called thumb up. Works every time against Maryland. It's a good one. So here you have it. Let's see if I can get it to play real quick. Of course it's going to mess up right when we're going live. We're going to get it to play. That's James Mays. You got to help out when there's pressure. Cliff Hammond's going to take the ball up. We're going to run thumb up. What's thumb up? We're going to run K.C. Rivers. He's going to come off. We're going to look for Trevor Booker. Trevor Booker's not there. Coach Purnell knew that. He's a genius. That man on the right side is going to be right open. I'm happy I got the Maryland game just because of that. Get to let everybody know what all's happening. Anyway, that's that. I should just let the highlights go. I should.
Yeah.
We have any questions?
We do not have any additional questions.
No additional questions today. Guys, look, thank you again for joining in. Sorry about the technical difficulties at the beginning. We're working on it. We are finished for today. I'm going to be on the radio. I'm also going to give a little bit more in-depth scouting report against Maryland coming up next Wednesday. I'll probably do it on Tuesday so you guys can get ready. Try to keep it under 5-10 minutes so that you have enough to go into the game. Guys, look, thank you so much for joining us. And that's a wrap. Let It Fly with Terrence Oglesby.